Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. We are today on episode number 197. David Corman, I love your swag today.
Well, I always want to get in the spirit. So the Olympics and Jack, I was at the Vancouver Olympics in 2010, doing my best cheer on for Team Canada. So I pulled the stuff out and ready
Ooh,
to go.
love it.
Go Canada.
I think Italy would have been a pretty awesome venue as well this year to be there and to cheer on our athletes. Been trying to get highlights and see any of the videos that are coming out, and
Yeah.
it's always exciting. It's always great to support your country and to cheer on the athletes and to see the champions and the level of competition, and it's really incredible to witness.
Yeah, it is. It's so much fun. My grandson's hockey coach just left. He got tickets for the Team Canada men's, the three preliminary round games.
Wow.
Through a connection. So he just took off for a week. So he'll catch the games tomorrow, Friday, Sunday, and then come back. Lucky him. And I told him even if he didn't get tickets, he just got to walk around town wearing Canada stuff and meeting people from other countries. It's really quite an experience. A lot of
Yeah,
fun.
I've never been to an Olympic venue before, but I trained with a four-time Olympian, DeWitt Frazier, for boxing,
Yeah.
and I've been training with DeWitt. He was a guest on our podcast. I've been training with him for over 10 years now, and just being part of that, Olympian mentality and lifestyle has a certain swagger to it, right? So
Yes.
I can't even imagine, being, in the Olympic Village and meeting the athletes and being, part of that energy and those festivities. It must be quite something.
Well, it is. I can just tell you from my Vancouver experience, we got invited to a thing that was through Canada Fund, which is a fundraiser for Canadian Olympic athletes. And I participated in a couple fundraisers with them, and I got invited to, they had a house there. They called it Canada House or the Canada Fund House or something like that. And they said, come by, you need this ticket. And they sent me a ticket, and we were with friends of ours. So we all got in there, and it was really hosting parents and families of the athletes. It was a place that they could gather and they'd have some food there and drinks for them. And then they'd go off to watch their kids play. So in the meantime, there was a whole bunch of summer Olympic athletes that were there, like a bunch of swimmers that I'd never heard of or met. But when they came 2 years later for the next Summer Olympics, oh yeah, we met her, we met her, we met him. It was
Wow.
pretty cool. We met parents of some of the ski jumpers and the aerial ski, and then we went to an event. So now we know who to cheer for. It was really quite an experience to see a little bit of the inside and the anxiety that the parents go through and everything. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and being part of that energy, that's amazing. It
Yeah,
personalizes the whole event as well, right? You're not just cheering for Canada, now you're cheering for the person. You get to
right.
know them a little bit. You see the hard work that goes behind the scenes. You see the anxiety. You meet the parents. Like
Yeah.
it completely changes the experience, I think. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I got to hang out with a few clients while I was there too. If CRA is asking, yeah, I did see some clients there. And
And meet some new clients probably, right, as
I
well.
have some clients that were ex-NHL players that are in the broadcast business now, and they were there to cover the game. So I managed to, meet up with them and have a drink and stuff. So it was quite a fun atmosphere and a lot of fun to do. Great, great members. I can't believe it was 16 years ago already.
Oh my God, time is flying.
Yeah.
And we have
But we
another
have some great things to talk about today because lots is happening here.
we
Always some
do.
action.
We have another spicy topic we're going to get into today. This one's going to be a little controversial. The last time, David, I have a newsletter that I write for the Real Estate Investment Institute. We send it out on a weekly basis, and I think we have about 1,600 subscribers to the newsletter. And the last time we had the iPro scandal, where there was money embezzled from the trust account with the iPro owners. I wrote that. it was the business model that effectively, caused those owners to make poor business decisions and, commit fraud and take the money out of the bank account. Now, albeit you never really know what happens behind the scenes and what the motivation is. But I do think that the business model that some of these brokerages employ, heavily pressures some of these people to make poor business decisions at the end of the day. It's those poor business decisions that ultimately lead to, the line being crossed. And there was an interview with the owners of iPro, or somebody quoted them, or I don't really recall where this information was circulated, but they basically said that they took the money to fund operations of the business from the trust account.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
obviously, it's not something we uh, encourage or would ever do. And that trust money is sacred. You're not supposed to touch it ever under any circumstances. But if these people are running a good, solid, profitable business, there'd be no pressure and really no temptation to go down this path. And right now, the economy is a little bit slower. A number of transactions are declining. It's more difficult out there. And recently, we've had another really big brokerage experience the same ordeal, which is, the SaveMax scandal that's happening currently.
Yeah, and I think we got to maybe just go through and explain the differences in models, because I think from your point of view, as the owner of a brokerage, I'm just guessing that you don't think this was a coincidence. Like, the iPro had a certain model and SaveMax is a certain model that's similar and very different from the way you operate your brokerage and a lot of other brokers. Like, these are discount brokerages, right? So you're thinking this isn't a coincidence necessarily, or just happened to be two bad operatives. One was doing iPro, another group of people are doing SaveMax, because that could be the truth too. Just two bad business people or dishonest business people. But you think this is a little more fundamental because it's a reflection on the type of model of brokerage that they happen to be operating.
Yeah, David, I'll share a story with you. I remember the first time I met Jack Ellis, who was one of the former owners of this brokerage. And Jack was a lifelong real estate investor. He had a portfolio worth millions of dollars. Like, this guy was, somebody that I really looked up to and respected as just a shrewd business guy, great investor, very humble, and he built a huge empire. I remember when I first met him, one of the first things I asked him is, I said, I don't know if I want to get into the brokerage business. There's so many discount brokerages popping up. I think there's going to be so much pressure on our business model. And he laughed, and I'll never forget his response. And he laughed and he just looked me in the eye and he said, "Yep, we've been dealing with it from 1970. Nothing new." He's like,
Right.
"David, these business models come and they go, and they follow the market cycles. When the market does really well, these brokerages do well because they're all transaction driven. The minute the market falls, they all crumble." And he's like, "We've seen it time and time and again, and history always repeats itself. And here we are, history is repeating itself again." And these are, words of a very smart, shrewd business owner that's been around for a really long time. And the way that they set up Sutton Summit Realty, the commission split, the systems, the safeguards, is to, really make sure that the brokerage prospers and flourishes and really continues to operate in a very profitable way, even in these negative market conditions, right? And a lot of brokerages out there are not set up the same way. They're not making the same business decisions, and they fall casualties to the rising and the falling markets that we're seeing.
Yeah. So then reality hits them. They got bills to pay just for operations. Market's slow, regardless of how good you are or bad you are. It doesn't matter to some extent because the market just is slow. So the volume's not there, the revenue's not there. and they got to pay bills. So they say, hey, we don't have any money in our general account to cover this, but we do have a lot of money in our trust account. So why don't we just take some money out of the trust account, cover this? We have more money that'll be coming in a couple of days to the trust account. We'll put it all back. Like not necessarily trying to, like it's never going back and they're just using the trust funds. That's a different thing that's happened for people that use trust funds. They're spending it on their own personal goodies and stuff. That's not
Right.
necessarily the case. It was like, no, we're just going to take it from this bank account, use it to cover stuff, and then we'll put the money back soon, right? And that's the rabbit hole that they sort of fell into. And you just can't do
Yeah.
that. Like you said, David, a trust account is sacred. You
Sacred.
can't.
Yep.
I grew up my family, my dad was a retailer, menswear retailer. Someone came in and wanted a suit that was, okay, it was $200 in the day, but now let's say it's $1,000 suit. And they put a deposit down, say, here's $200. You got to do some tailoring to it, and I'll pick it up in a week. So he had that $200. When they came back to get the suit, they pay the other $100. They take the suit, but that $200 they gave him in retail context, that's not trust money. He can use that money for whatever business offer. That's his money. Like the part of the giving you 200, they're going to pay the other 100 and take the suit. That's not the way it works. If you're a brokerage or a law firm, when you get money in trust, the money has to stay in trust and it's only used towards that transaction, because there is a possibility the transaction doesn't happen and the money has to
Right.
be refunded. And there's very strict rules about operating a trust account. And that's why there's audits in trust account. And that's why you do have RICO that comes in and regulates you. And we have a law society that comes in regularly to look at all lawyers' trust accounts and see how you're operating. Just because you're not allowed to do those type of things. You can only use the
Right.
trust funds for that particular transaction.
Right. And what's interesting in the Law Society, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys actually reconcile your trust account on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I really commend you guys for doing that. I mean, that's wonderful. I think it's the highest level of security. You're always safeguarding those funds, making sure that you know where every single dollar is coming from, who it belongs to, which transaction it belongs to, and making sure that that money is fully accounted for. We do trust reconciliations on a weekly basis. We're mandated to do them on a monthly basis, so we try to be over that compliance line. And we're very proud of that. We're proud of that. We do that on a weekly basis, and we go over and above to safeguard our clients' money and to make sure that we're fully protected. We have four layers of protection. We have an internal team, we have a bookkeeper, we have an external accountant. So we have four different layers of protection there as well. And it's necessary. We have millions of dollars in our trust account, as do you guys probably, right? And we have to hold that money to the highest standard. And it's not our money at the end of the day.
Right. It's not your money at the end of the day. It's exactly it. Now, we have lawyers that get in trouble with their trust accounts too. The law side
Of
is
course.
constantly doing audits, constant investigation. We get reports, and like when a lawyer is being investigated, it gets published right away. Now we know that there's an ongoing investigation. The information's available. There's always some lawyers that are being investigated, and sometimes they were okay, and sometimes they didn't do it properly. Sometimes they get a slap on the wrist. Sometimes they get suspended. Sometimes they get disbarred. Okay, depending on what they did. So it happens, but there's a policing to it, and everybody understands it. You have to be on top of these things because, like you said, David, it's not your money. It's you're holding it in trust for somebody else. Okay,
Yeah.
and and it's really bad when you see things like this happen to SaveMax and to iPro. And I'm not saying bad for the owners. They get what they deserve at the end of the day.
Oh, 100%.
Right. I'm not worried
100%.
about them. But there's a bunch of agents that have been working there that think they're working in a good place, in a safe place, and are doing deals and have their clients' money in the trust account.
Yeah. Let,
Supposedly, it's
let's
not there.
let's talk about that for a second, because I think we need to unpack that a little bit. You mentioned that there's good agents and that they're safe working there. And every single agent, David, is an independent contractor. They're a business owner, right? So when you make a decision of joining a brokerage, I don't care what brokerage it is, as a business owner, you have to look at their model, at the way that the brokerage runs their business. And you have to ask yourself, is this sustainable? And as a business owner, is this the type of leadership that I want to model and learn from and embody in my business? Because I have a big issue with the Ontario government bailing out these iPro realtors and safeguarding all the commissions that were on the line. I have a big issue with it. And the reason I have an issue with it, David, um, of course I care about these people. Of course I don't wish them harm. But as a business owner, we have to hold these people accountable for the bad business decisions that they make. And if we bail them out and say, hey, you've made a really bad and poor business decision, you joined this brokerage that the model clearly doesn't make sense. You put your business on the line, your reputation on the line, your client's trust on the line, and you operated thinking that everything is great. You didn't think three steps ahead, right? And now you're in trouble, right? And the poor business decision that you made, there's consequences to it. And the government comes in, waves that magic wand, and makes everything better. And what message are we sending to the marketplace? What message are we sending to the consumers? Right? If a laundry store opens in the corner and they don't run a business properly, are we expecting that the government is going to come in and just bail them out, pay all their debts, and say, you know what, it's okay. You made a bad business decision. You ran your business to the ground, but we're gonna wave the magic wand. We're gonna make everything go better, right? And I look at the overall landscape of what's happening in our industry. You know, if you make a bad business decision, you deserve to go under. You really do. That's how you protect the consumer. That's how you protect the industry. That's how you protect the good business models out there that, are doing everything right and not breaking the rules, right? We look at the situation, we're like, okay, are they going to save all the SaveMax agents now? And if they do, are they going to save everybody else that is going to fold and go under as well because of the poor decisions that they're all making? Like, where does it end?
Yeah, I think it's a great point because you're right. There's two mistakes. Okay, there's the mistakes. It's more than mistakes. It's actually fraud at the level of the owners of the
100%.
brokerage,
No
right?
question.
But it's not criminal or fraud, but there's clearly a bad mistake made by the agents when they go there that didn't do their proper due diligence about the structure, the people operating the brokerage, etc. I think you're right because at the end of the day, each agent is a business unto itself. And that's that's one of the first business decisions you're going to make. Where do I want to hang my hat? Where am I going to operate out of? And what's going to be good. So I agree with you that this should be a reflection on the reputation of the agents too. And the agents should have to put that on the bottom of their business card forever. Formerly of iPro Realty or formerly of SaveMax. And if you checked, if you were just being introduced to an agent, you were checking out their history and where were you before. If you're really within your rights, you should be asking those questions. Like how long you been at this brokerage? Where were you before? How come you left there? Those are all fair questions because you're buying the services and the trust and building a reputation, building a relationship with that agent, right? And that's a really bad decision by some agents to go to those models without doing proper due diligence.
Yeah, I mean, David, it's a head scratcher because this point really got amplified when iPro went under, and I got a list of iPro agents, and I started making phone calls to some of the top teams, and I started talking to them. And these people were going go through a lot. Some of them had active listings. There was not a lot of communication. There was a lot of things that they were going through, and as business owners, there was a lot of pressure on them to make a decision to really um, uh, deal with the situation at hand. But the conversation I was having with some of these agents, they didn't see anything wrong. They were making excuses for the owner. They didn't see how this could possibly affect their reputation. A lot of them moved to a subsequent brokerage that was started. I was started by a new ownership group that transitioned out of the old ownership group. And and I said to some of these agents, guys, like you're just perpetuating the issue. You're moving, into another company with the same business model. The same thing is just going to happen. You guys are going to be impacted again. Like you're making the same poor decision. Like at least come and meet with us and like, let me sit down, explain it to you. Like let's discuss it. And just seeing how that went over their heads, I put the list down and I stopped making phone calls. And I said to my leadership team, I said, you know what? I don't want these agents at my brokerage. Like, if as a business owner, you can't safeguard your reputation, if your reputation is not the number one thing that you're protecting as a business owner, then you just don't understand it on a fundamental level.
Yeah. And I think you've dealt with enough, you've seen enough of those type of agents. So those are agents that are chasing commissions. Those aren't agents that are providing a service and building relationship with clients. And by doing that, they're going to get the commissions anyways, right? There's just a different mindset, different way of looking at it. And I think ultimately, like you said, Dave, you don't want those guys, at the end of the day. If you have to work really hard to try and convince them that, like they're making a bad business choice, then they're not for you. There's enough good agents out there that you want to build relationships with and go forward with. And it's a shame, like when stuff like this happens, it just taints the whole industry to some extent. Like every single article I read about SaveMax, every report, not only do they say what happened at SaveMax, but then they go on to say they tell the iPro story in the same article. Like they just have to go back as if there's a pattern, and this is just the next one, and there'll be another one in a month from now, right? Because you just go back and say, they're telling they're reporting on SaveMax, they're saying, and a few months ago there was iPro, and this is what happened, blah blah blah. And they just go on and tell that story too. So consumers that read this start losing confidence in the industry. So like, where is it safe? Like, maybe I should sell privately or do something different, right? And it's just wrong. And the iPro one was a failure not only of the brokerage, but it was also a failure of Rico to police
That was,
properly,
yeah, that,
right? So even if Rico may have been right on top of SaveMax this time and did their job properly, they still get painted because every report is going to bring up the iPro situation where they dropped the ball too, right?
yeah, and we have a new registrar now at Rico. The government appointed a new registrar, and the whole board was dismissed a couple weeks ago. And there's going to be some shakeups and some new policies, and I'm sure there's going to be some additional um, guardrails put in place, which is welcomed. Absolutely, and needs to happen. But I do think that we're going to see more of these brokerages that have bad business models. And I hate to pick on the discount brokerages because there's some big name brokerages that have bad business models too, that cut their commission, that are give away the banks, that don't have good business models either, and they're susceptible to this too, right? But the discount brokerages are especially susceptible to it. So if you're a realtor, if you're a professional, if you're a business owner, join the brokerage that you're proud of. Join the brokerage that, the business model makes sense. Like think about their business model. Think about, you're running a business. And if you want to learn how to run a business, then surround yourself by people who are also running world-class businesses that have systems, that have safeguards, that have good business models, where, I'm not saying join the most expensive brokerage out there, right? But I'm saying join a brokerage that, has a great business that you can learn how to also run a great business, right? And I think that's the story that I'm trying to tell and to portray on the industry. I love this industry, David. You know how much I love this industry. Like, look, 4 years later, we're still doing these podcasts. We're doing it because we both love this industry, right? We want to see this industry do better.
Yeah. I hope people take this to heart. I think you made some excellent points on this, and it should be eye-opening for everybody in the industry, and they should take a hard look at wherever they are in their situation and make sure they're not at risk, because ultimately it's going to affect them. It's going to affect their own client base and their own ability to, to operate their businesses. So they should be paying attention to this. So I think it was important that we had this little discussion today. So
It was a spicy one, but I think it was necessary.
yeah,
Thanks, guys, for joining us. As always, drop us your questions. We want to hear from you. And join us on the next episode where we're going to be talking into a topic that is very central. We're going to be talking about buyer confidence and what you can do as an agent on the other side of the transaction to really push things along. Because I think in this market, we all need to sort of work together and get buyers over the hump to make transactions happen. So we're super excited. Join us next episode. David Corbin, as always, a huge pleasure.
thanks, David. Always great.